Yo, Jack Harlow. He's a funny fellow for sure. After being consistently clowned off the internet for the overall poor quality of his album, Come Home the Kids Miss You, the improvement and reception to Jackman, his most recently released 10-song album, was a massive surprise.
Honestly, salute to Jack because people were asking for this album for a minute, and I do feel like he did a good job on it, and it is worth a listen, absolutely.
Now, with white rappers, you can never take them too seriously. They can either fit into the Mac Miller or G-Eazy categories of rappers. There's no real in between. And with the persona that Jack often displays in the media, I definitely was persuaded to think that he was a little bit more in the latter category. He didn't seem to take hip-hop too seriously, despite having some good songs, but even that began to sour with some of the tracks off of That's What They All Say and the aforementioned Come Home the Kids Miss You. I mean, just to justify that level of thinking a bit, I think Churchill Downs is one of the worst uses of a Drake feature of all time. I mean, the song only has just over 100 million streams on it, and even a song like I'm Upset off of Scorpion, a song that a lot of Drake fans actually hate, has close to 400 million streams. So when I heard Jack was dropping an album without any significant promotion, as well as the jokes being made on Twitter about the cover art, I thought his fate was all but sealed, as the bar for people to be impressed was set extremely high. Yet he still managed to surpass people's expectations, including my own, which has kind of flipped my opinion on Jack Harlow as a whole. I'd argue that Jackman actually represents a phenomenon that hip-hop fans wish to see more of, an actual clear response of passion towards the art. It also kind of begs the question of whether or not the disrespect that Jack was getting was ever truly deserved.
Cause they don't love it, they don't love it, they don't love it, they don't love it.
There's no features on this album, no radio hits, no Metro Boomin, just some really solid beat selection, 10 songs, a 24-minute runtime, and Jack sounding like he's the most locked in that I've ever heard from him before. This album feels gritty and raw and a targeted response to those that were trying to clown Jack's ability to rap. The subject matter across most of the songs is also pretty serious, from the tension that surrounds loyalty, cultural appropriation, judgment, amongst other heavy topics, which is a refreshing and welcome change from Jack, considering most of his subject matter is about what's poppin', or Dua Lipa, or flying first class. It's also nice to see an artist actually feel like they have to prove a point. Almost every artist goes through a spell where the court of public opinion isn't a huge fan of them at any given moment. However, a lot of the typical responses and reactions you'll see are attempts to just try and brush off these sentiments, acting like it's just internet talk and deflate the negativity being directed towards their content. I can understand that for most of them, they feel as if people are just out to get them, as people obviously do like to plot on the downfall of others, especially with celebrities, but if fans are trying to be constructive or feel discouraged by a recent project you've put out, that isn't aimless negativity. That's a business problem at the end of the day, my guy. The idea of an artist staying silent and putting the response to the hate they've been receiving into a project or music is something that most fans ask for but rarely receive. Most artists, when they do release music after controversy or a bad spell of music, try to act like nothing happened and just move past it or subliminally mention it and try to act like that comprehensively addresses any noted concerns, which overall isn't very entertaining or interesting. Now, on the flip side of that, and this might be an out there example, but when 6ix9ine came out of prison after he snitched and then dropped Gooba, him directly commenting on being a snitch and playing into it nearly got him a #1 record. It wouldn't have been the right move for him to try and act like the outcome was different than it actually was, and it definitely would have been way more boring if he had not addressed anything and just acted like nothing had happened at all. And sure, if you look at him now, he got his ass beat in LA Fitness, but I would say he's still pretty relevant, despite the fact that he hasn't consistently been dropping music over the past few years, and also despite the fact that he arguably isn't that talented. Comparatively, when people don't address these kind of issues, it leaves fans kind of feeling deflated about an artist in general. I mean, would it have been better if Drake had fully responded to the Pusha T diss? You tell me. So it might just be that showcasing an intelligent reaction towards community sentiments is a better idea than just letting things slide and having the public control the narrative. And I think that Jack Harlow understands this better than most other artists. Jackman is the kind of album that music fans want from an artist when they're getting heat in the public eye. They want to be proven wrong when they so often aren't. The execution of this album is genius as it sets him up for this success. Making a project this short and not labeling it a mixtape or EP, in addition to the rap focus and lack of features, is a really smart move. So if people saw this album had a long runtime with a lengthy track list, they would have felt more entitled to skip it, because they would have just assumed it was more of the same and wouldn't want to waste their time. That's definitely the boat I would have been in, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. Therefore, having a shorter album gave him a larger chance of people taking the time to not just listen to 1 or 2 songs off of it, but the project in its entirety. The fact that at the time of this recording it's projected to do 50K first week makes it clear that people have heard what he's had to say on the album. He did 50K on 24 minutes. That's better than most artists have done over the past 2 years. Therefore, the praise that this album has been receiving from people who are willing to listen to it despite the negativity surrounding Jack also indicates something that might be obvious to you, but is still worth pointing out. There's no credit in the hip-hop public. I saw a lot of tweets about how people were shocked that Jackman was good and how it was extremely similar to projects that Jack had put out before. So for the first time, it made me feel like I should go back through his discography and listen to a couple of older snippets and songs to try and get a better feel for whether this was typical Jack or just a reaction.
Off a tab with a synthetic sundown, 45 minutes till the shit set it.
While these earlier projects weren't earth-shattering, they were decent and much better quality than some of his more recent work. And the conclusion that I came to was that it's kind of surprising how quick people will turn on you after one or two mediocre projects or songs. Jack on his newer stuff was clearly adjusting to the meteoric rise in success that he had undergone, and while he was showcasing a laid-back attitude, cracking jokes, it was likely an adjustment in inspiration he underwent as well. He was no longer the underdog, and I feel like people seem to think that that's an easy thing to deal with, but it's still a process. He isn't going to keep making underdog music. He's going to try to make music that appeals to a larger audience, which from a business perspective is the smart thing to do, but fans often expect a different outcome. I mean, Jackman is considered to be a good project because of its rap focus, but it won't do the same level of streams that Come Home the Kids Miss You managed to get because of its focus on hits. So was he really doing the wrong thing in the first place? What good is a quality project if no one really listens to it? Despite that, it's kind of funny that when people were recently clowning his newer music and calling him overrated, that on Jackman he was able to create the type of project that people were supposedly expecting from him. It's almost like it wasn't a lack of skill, but a lack of perspective, and when people put Jack back in that box, he was able to perform. You don't just lose the ability to make good music overnight, it's a lot more of a mental capacity thing than the court of public opinion likes to understand. If Jack can get himself as focused as he appeared on Jackman, whilst adding in elements that would make his work more streamable, I could definitely see a future where if he does get nominated for another Grammy, that people would actually say it's deserved. That's just my vibe though.